protests over the murder of George Floyd have become a crisis as a result of the police response. However, this has created an opportunity for Black men and women to begin to take control over the policing of their communities and get paid to do it. Hi, I'm Dr. William Small, the founder of DrWill Enterprises and the host of Wealth Builder Seminars in Dallas, Texas. I'm an Association for Talent Development Master Trainer and Consultant and a certified national or financial educator with the National Financial Educators Council. More importantly, I'm a Black man with major concerns about the lives of Black people and the growing trend in this nation toward overt white supremacy. In that regard, I say that it's time for Black men and women to come to the realization that no one other than people of color are going to protect and serve communities of color better than we would. It's time for Black men and women to put on a uniform and strap on a gun in order to preserve the dignity and humanity of our mothers and daughters and protect the lives of our sons. Forget all of that nonsense, that childish nonsense about people thinking that you're a snitch and selling out or being a narc. Only criminals talk like that anyway. And make no mistake, you'll have to protect your community from Black criminals too, but you'll be in position to prevent some people from being accused of being a criminal who is not, and you'll be in position where you can prevent an innocent Black man from being murdered at the hands of police. Before I move on, I want to say to Attorney Benjamin Crump and Al Sharpton to stop demanding first-degree murder charges. This falls under the old axiom, be careful what you wish for because you might just get it. If that cop is charged with first-degree murder, ladies and gentlemen, he will walk scot-free. There are elements to every crime that must be proven in order to get a conviction. There are no elements in the first-degree murder charge in the state of Minnesota criminal statute that applies to what this cop did. If you can't approve the elements of a crime, you won't do no time. Third-degree murder is the right charge because the elements of the crime can be proven by the cop's actions. Third-degree murder carries a maximum penalty of 25 years in prison, and the aggregating factors in the cop's action, sitting casually with his knee on George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes like he was waiting to be served coffee, warrants that he received the maximum penalty. Now give me a minute and I'll explain why I know this, okay? But first let me say that I wouldn't tell you to do something that I wouldn't do, and I never tell people what I'm doing, I only tell them what I've done. So let me tell you my story so you can understand what I've done, how I did it, why I did it, then hopefully you'll be motivated to do it too, all right? Amen. Now I was born a real junior Black militant, and I didn't come out of my mother's womb head first, I came out fist first. Okay, and I think that because I grew up in the 60s and saw the violence perpetrated against peaceful civil rights protesters, that it made me a champion of the underdog. And that experience made me want to fight against racism everywhere. So I decided to go into the military because I recognized that the Army was a collection of people from all over the country. And in my young 17-year-old mind, I figured that if I went into the Army and showed these people an example of Black exceptionalism, it would kill their racial stereotypes. But what I discovered is they recognized my exceptionalism. However, they concluded that I was the exception. So they held on to their stereotypes of Black people being dumb, lazy, and criminal as the rule. I moved up into the senior Army ranks or the pay grades fast, so I was in a position to protect some Black people from being discriminated against or charged with criminal offenses. However, after being in there fighting for 20 years, I decided that it was time for me to move on and begin another career as a business owner. But once I returned home and hit the inner city streets of Buffalo, New York, I began to see the same and even worse kind of racial injustice that I fought against in the military. You have to understand that I was hotter than fish grease, okay? So I was thinking seriously one day about what I was gonna do to try to put an end to it. And since I still had that mentality of a militant and that now became empowered by the knowledge of military experience, I concluded that it was time for Black men to take up guns, and man, I planned to put together a military-style guerrilla fighting force that was second to none after I saw this picture. Huey Newton and Rhett Brown had taken up arms to defend their community from police brutality, and I was ready to do the same. But then I realized that it would be smarter for me to have the city give me a gun and pay me to serve and protect the people of my community, so that's what I did. I became a police officer. I protected and served the largest area of the Black community of Buffalo, New York for 25 years. And the beauty of being in that position of authority is I had the opportunity to prevent some brothers from getting arrested for doing something stupid and some kids from being put into the system. I also commanded the moral authority by my physical presence to stop some of them from being brutalized by racist cops. And you would be surprised just how a black person being there would stop these rogue cops from murdering black people. And yes, I can hear the so-called woke cats saying right now, well, the black cops are the worst ones. And yeah, you have some of those types, but they are very few who try to act white because they hate their blackness. But by and large, if you get a nasty response from a black cop, it's either because you were nasty or you perceive the officer to be nasty because of your low sense of self-esteem. Most black cops are the best of the best and the bravest of the brave, and they're doing that duty because they love their people and their community. But they have to take a lot of crap from racist cops and some of the people that they are trying to protect and serve. And again, I wouldn't tell you to do anything that I haven't done or wouldn't do. So let me tell you what I did when I was in the police academy. As we were going through our class discussions on policing, I took the opportunity to inform my fellow officers that I was not going to play their blue wall of silence game. I said to them without any hesitation, reservation, or equivocation that if you don't want me to tell on you, don't do anything in front of me. And don't expect me to stand around and watch you or help you beat up a black person, okay? You're gonna have to fight me too if you do it, okay? So they were like, you're just an a-hole, you're a snitch, you're not gonna be a good cop. And I said, okay, you're exactly right. I'm a snitch and you better remember that. Now, I received death threat and nooses hung on my locker and the whole 9 yards, but none of them could beat me, so they had no choice but to respect me. So for many years, we've heard stories and seen evidence of the fact that members of the KKK and cats with white supremacist mentalities have infiltrated police agencies at the federal, state, and local levels all across the nation. There were up to 13 different police agencies operating in my city at one time, so I've seen them with my own eyes. As a child of the 60s, I heard black people complain about the over-aggressive policing in their communities for nearly 60 years. Black people complain, march, and protest, and sometimes even resort to violence to bring about a change, yet nothing changes. And after every brutal police incident exposed publicly, we do the same predictable thing. We march and complain, and nothing changes. So why is that? It's because we refuse to change. We refuse to make the personal sacrifice of joining the police force, putting on a uniform, and strapping on a gun to stop or reduce the incidence of police violence against black citizens. If it continues to happen because too many black people don't have the intestinal fortitude to buck against cultural norms, and too many of us don't want to endure the ridicule that black cops get from their own people in order to be in position to stop racist cops from beating up on or killing black people. Young people, please listen. Okay, it's time to stop marching and take affirmative action. Affirmative action is action you take for yourself, not actions other people do for you. The actions we take for ourselves born on insanity because we keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We're actually trying to force KKK members or people with a white supremacist mindset to change the way they treat us, but we won't change the way we treat ourselves. It is insane to expect people to treat us fairly who have been telling us for over 400 years that they don't give a crap about us. Yet every time there's an incident, we go out marching and yelling, Black Lives Matter. And I don't understand why we expect white supremacists and racists to agree that Black Lives Matter. Why do we expect people with that mindset to suddenly change and say, yeah, you're right, Black lives do matter? Why do we keep marching when their response is always something like Blue Lives Matter? Black people are not gunning down unarmed police. However, the response from the intellectually indigent racist Blue Lives Matter is nonsense. Really, dude? Blue Lives Matter? How many ways do they have to show us that you don't matter before you stop marching and yelling Black Lives Matter? Some of them have even resorted to responding with All Lives Matter. In response to our demand for humane treatment at the hands of police, we get people who want to incorporate our fight for human rights into their fight for animal rights. Really? The people with the KKK mindset and those with white supremacy mentality are never going to change because fear is their motivator. They are so afraid of black people that they believe that they have to stockpile military-style assault weapons, bombs, and bullets in order to protect themselves from us. We have never been a threat to them, but because they have always been so vicious toward us, they figure that one day we're going to fight back, so they want to be ready. They have been preparing to defend themselves from this race war that they conjured up for so long that they are now trying to initiate it to get it over with. And their fear and anxiety is frustrating, so it has them beating up their wives and killing their own families Therefore, their women join with them in advocating a race war against us to try to take the pressure off them and eliminate the threat by their husbands and boyfriends to their children. Their racism, ladies and gentlemen, is never going to end as long as they have a fear of a black nation and a growing black and brown population. Their fear of losing power and authority over black lives is what motivated them to violently resist the reforms that we were demanding during the Civil Rights Movement. Black people had a very simple demand, and that was to be treated fairly, equally, and for white people to be civil. Just be civil. But they couldn't do it. They said no and responded to our demand for civility with police brutality. They sicked dogs on us and had firemen shoot us with water cannons. They didn't want to give up their supreme authority over black lives to decide on a whim whether or not we could live or die. So they decided to squelch our demand for civility with supreme violence. They infiltrated police departments all over the country to maintain their position of power and authority so they can kill black people under the color of authority. However, we can turn the tables on them and greatly diminish their power and authority by infiltrating police departments ourselves. If they want a race war, then we can fight them that battle on the same ground where we are equally armed with weapons and authority. Now that I've told you what I've done, what I want to ask you is, what are you going to do? Come on, let's go. As a Bible scholar, I have to add that Ecclesiastes 7:12 says, wisdom is defense and money is defense, but the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to them that have it. Brothers and sisters, we have to be wise and understand that we need money to defend ourselves against the injustices of the justice system and against those who have no respect for and place no value on black lives. The only thing that powerful people who preside over the justice system respect is large amounts of money and large groups of people, but they don't even respect those two if the money is not pooled and the people are not organized. It's time for black people to stop organizing marches and start organizing money. Finally, as a financial educator, I would be remiss if I didn't explain the financial benefits of taking the risk of becoming a cop. The only people who get really rich are those who take risks, okay? So when you join a police department, you get paid by the city, you won't lose your paycheck due to a crisis, you'll get medical benefits, and you'll get a real pension at retirement. But of course, you'll have to endure to make it to retirement, but what you would have done to protect your people will be worth it. All right, amen. Well, that's all the time that I have for now, and I'll be back with something new that nobody else told you. Until then, remember that God loves you, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it, and I'll see you next time on Wealth Builder Seminars.